My name is Ren Calloway. I'm 29 years old. And the Wednesday morning I read my sister's message in a chat I wasn't supposed to be in was when I finally understood that I had been performing a role my family had written for me long before I was old enough to audition for anything else. The notification came at 7:51 a.m. I was at my kitchen table with coffee and a client brief I'd been annotating since 6. My phone buzzed with a message from a group called Calloway Spring Plans, a chat I'd been added to 3 weeks earlier during a flurry of family coordination around our grandmother's birthday, and which had apparently stayed active in ways I hadn't tracked. The message was from my sister Becca. It was addressed, I could see from the thread, to our cousin Jade. It read, "Don't worry, she'll cover it. She always does. That's literally her job in this family." Jade had replied 4 minutes later. LOL true. 2 other family members, I recognized the numbers as my Aunt Cheryl and Becca's husband Dom, had added reaction emojis. A thumbs up. A laughing face. I read the thread 3 times, the way you read something that doesn't immediately resolve into meaning. Then I set my phone face down on the table, pulled my client brief back toward me, and finished my annotations. The work call was at 9. I was on time. I was focused. I asked 2 questions that changed the direction of the meeting, and my manager, Colette Briggs, sent me a follow-up message afterward that said simply, "Good catch this morning." I did not reply to the chat. Something settled in me the way sediment settles in still water. Not a decision yet, just a clarification of what I was looking at. I made a second cup of coffee. I ate breakfast. I went through the rest of my workday with the message sitting in a back corner of my attention, the way a sound sits with you after you've stopped hearing it. What none of them knew, what Becca had written down as casually as a grocery list, was that her job description of me was accurate in ways she had apparently never thought to examine. I had been covering things for years. The accounts, the subscriptions, the auto-renewing memberships she'd asked me to put on my card just temporarily. I was logged in everywhere. And I had a laptop. And that evening I opened it. I should explain what her job in this family actually looked like in practice. Over the 4 years since my sister's life had reorganized itself around a set of expenses she had stopped mentioning to me after I stopped asking about them. My name before I got married. I'm divorced now, 2 years out. Another arrangement that reorganized my life in ways I'm still understanding was Ren Calloway, same as it is now because I kept my name through both the marriage and the divorce, which was one of the few decisions during that period that I made cleanly and have never reconsidered. I work as a UX researcher for a software company called Ardwell Digital, a fully remote position I have held for 3 years, and that pays well enough that my savings account has a number in it I don't talk about at family gatherings, because family gatherings are not the place I discuss my finances, because my family does not treat financial information the way I treat financial information, as neutral data that helps you make decisions, but rather as a kind of social currency, something that flows toward who needs it and gets redistributed according to a logic that, as far as I can tell, was established sometime in my childhood and has never been formally reviewed. My sister Becca is 34. She is 5 years older than me, which matters in our family the way birth order tends to matter in families where resources were sometimes tight. It meant she established the baseline for what the family expected, and I arrived into those expectations already formed. Becca is quick, funny, and socially fluent in ways I have always observed with something like admiration and something like bewilderment. She knows how to enter a room. She knows how to make my mother laugh at a dinner table. She is, by every measure that my family uses to measure these things, the easier daughter. She is also, since her son Marcus turned 4 and her husband Dom shifted from a salaried position at a logistics company to a commission-based sales role that paid variably and, sometimes not at all, been operating with a consistent gap between what she needs in a given month and what her household income reliably covers. I became aware of this gap gradually, the way you become aware of a slow leak, not all at once, but through a series of small damp spots that you keep finding and addressing without ever locating the source. The first thing I covered was a gym membership. Becca mentioned, in the fall 2 years after Marcus was born, that she'd found a good gym near her house, but the membership was $67 a month, and with Dom's commissions being unpredictable that month, it was a stretch. I said I'd put it on my card. She said thank you. I set it to autopay and forgot about it, The way you forget about a small recurring thing that doesn't require your attention because it runs quietly in the background and nobody mentions it. That was 3 years ago. The gym membership was the first account. Over the following 18 months, it was joined by a streaming service Becca mentioned she and Dom couldn't justify anymore, $14.99 a month, added to my subscription at her request. Marcus's after-school enrichment program at a place called Bright Path Learning Center, $187 a month. Added when Becca said they'd gotten a notice about being 2 months behind and she didn't want Marcus to lose his spot. A meal kit delivery service Becca had signed up for and couldn't cancel without losing a deposit. $53.40 a month, added because canceling required a phone call and Becca said she hadn't had time, and a family photo storage app Becca used to back up pictures of Marcus. $9.99 a month, added because she'd asked me to cover it just for now, and just for now had not resolved into any other arrangement. I am a UX researcher. My job is to understand how people interact with systems, what they expect, where they get confused, where the friction accumulates, what they do when a system behaves in a way that doesn't match their mental model. I spend my working hours studying the gap between what people think they're doing and what they're actually doing. I am, professionally, very good at identifying when a system has been designed in a way that serves one party's needs at the expense of another's, often without the second party registering what's happening because the design is frictionless for them. I understood, when I sat down with my laptop on Wednesday evening and opened my password manager, that I had been inside a system I had never mapped. I pulled it up and typed Becca in the search field. 7 accounts came back. 5 of them were mine, accounts I had created that she was a secondary user on. 2 of them were hers, accounts I had been added to as a billing contact at her request because she'd said it was easier to have the payment in one place. I opened a new spreadsheet. I went through all 7 accounts, noted the monthly cost and the date each had been added. When I reached the bottom of the column, I looked at the number for a moment. $341.38 per month. $4,096.56 per year. Over 3 years, counting the gym membership from the beginning, $9,847 in total, distributed across 7 accounts in increments small enough that none of them had ever felt like a decision. That was the system. That was her job description of me. Someone who covered things in increments small enough not to require acknowledgement, across enough time that the arrangement had become, apparently, the natural order of things, something you could reference in a family chat with a laughing emoji. I noted the total. I closed the spreadsheet. I made dinner. After dinner, I called my attorney, a woman named Sylvia Okafor, who practices family and civil law at a 2-partner firm called Okafor and Lind. I had used Sylvia during my divorce. She had been precise, efficient, and completely unwilling to tell me what I wanted to hear when what I wanted to hear wasn't accurate, which had made the divorce harder and the outcome better. I called her at 7:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, which was outside her office hours, but Sylvia had given me her cell number 2 years ago and told me to use it for anything I considered a real question. I told her I had a series of shared accounts and subscriptions I was the primary or sole payer on, that I wanted to remove my sister as a user and cancel my payment authorization, and that I wanted to understand if there was any legal wrinkle I should be aware of before doing so. Sylvia said, "Are any of these contractually obligated payments? Anything in writing?" I said no. She said, "Are any of them essential services, utilities, housing, medical?" I said no. She said, "Then log out and cancel. You have 0 legal exposure. Do you want me to draft a notice letter in case she pushes back?" I said I'd let her know if it came to that. She said, "It probably won't. Call me if it does." I thanked her and ended the call. I sat at my kitchen table for a few minutes in the particular quiet that comes at the end of a workday in a remote job, when the laptop is closed and the apartment is still, and there's no transition between work and home because they occupy the same room. I thought about the word job. The way Becca had used it, that's literally her job in this family, with a kind of casual precision that suggests someone has thought about something enough to have a phrase for it, even if they've never said the phrase out loud before. I thought about the fact that I had not known this phrase existed until Wednesday morning. I opened my laptop. I opened my password manager. I started at the top of the list. The gym membership was first. I logged into the account, navigated to the membership management page, removed Becca's profile as a secondary member, and changed the billing email to one Becca didn't have access to. The whole process took 4 minutes. The membership would continue. I used that gym too, 2 mornings a week, but Becca's access would lapse at the end of the current billing cycle in 11 days. The streaming service. I changed the password and removed Becca's device from the authorized list. Her next login attempt would fail. Bright Path Learning Center. I called their billing line, a number I had, because I was the billing contact, and left a message for their administrator, a woman named Paulette Ferris, saying I needed to update the payment arrangement on the account and asking her to call me back. The meal kit service. I logged in, navigated to billing, removed my card, and submitted a cancellation request. The cancellation would process in 48 hours per their policy, but the next box wouldn't ship. The photo storage app. I changed the password. Becca's access would fail on next login. The 2 accounts where I was the added billing contact. I called the customer service lines and requested my card be removed as a payment method. Both representatives confirmed the change immediately. One of them, a man whose name I noted as Kevin, at the after-school program's parent portal, said the account would move to a balance due status without a replacement payment on file and that the account holder would receive a notice. I went through the full list in 1 hour and 17 minutes. When I was done, I closed the laptop. I washed the dishes from dinner. I called my friend Olamide, who lives in a different city and is one of 3 people in my life I trust to be accurate rather than comforting, and I told her what had happened. Olamide listened without interrupting, which is a gift she has, and then she said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it. "Finished," I said. She said, "With Becca or with the accounts?" "With the accounts," I said. "Becca is ongoing." Olamide said that was probably the right way to think about it. We talked for another 40 minutes about other things, and I went to bed. Paulette Ferris from Bright Path Learning Center called me back Thursday morning at 8:17. She was polite and slightly careful in the way of someone who has navigated billing disputes before and has learned to lead with warmth. She confirmed she'd received my message, said she'd pulled the account, and asked how I'd like to update the payment information. I said I was removing my card from the account entirely and that the account holder, my sister Rebecca Calloway Marsh, would need to provide a new payment method. Paulette said she understood, confirmed the card removal, and said she'd send a notice to the account holder with a 7-day window to update billing before the account was paused. I thanked her. I ended the call. I went back to the client brief I was working on. At 9:44 a.m., Becca texted me. "Hey, did you get a notice from Bright Path? Marcus's account is showing something weird." I did not reply immediately. I was in a focus block. At 11:20 I replied, "Yes." I removed my card from the account. Becca's reply came in 6 minutes. "What? Why?" I typed, "I'm making some changes to my financial accounts. You'll need to add your own payment method." A pause of 9 minutes. Then, "Ren, this is Marcus's school program. You can't just. Then, can you call me?" I replied, "I'll call you tonight." She sent 3 more messages between noon and 4 p.m. I read them at the end of my workday. "The streaming is gone too. What happened to the account? Did you change the gym thing? I tried to check in, and my profile isn't there. Ren, please call me. I don't understand what's going on." At 5:30 I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "What is happening?" she said. Not a question. The same flat register I had learned to recognize in my family, the one that means someone is managing something they don't yet have language for. "I made some changes to the accounts," I said. "I removed my card from the ones where you were the account holder, and I updated access on the ones where I'm the primary." "Why?" "I've been thinking about the financial arrangement," I said. "I decided to make some changes." "What financial arrangement?" "Ren, the gym thing alone, I use that gym 3 times a week." And Bright Path sent Marcus a pause notice. He's going to ask why he can't go. I had thought about Marcus, who is 7 and has a specific kind of attention and routine dependence that makes disruptions hard. I had thought about it carefully. "The Bright Path account has a 7-day window," I said. "That's enough time to add your card." "We don't. Dom's commissions this month," she stopped. "You know our situation right now." "I do," I said. "I've known your situation for 3 years. I've been covering $341 a month across 7 accounts for most of that time. A pause. I was in the chat, I said. The family chat. The message you sent to Jade on Wednesday. The pause that followed was different from the ones before. Denser. The kind that comes from calculating, not processing. That was, she started. I'm not calling to discuss the message, I said. I've already understood it. I'm calling because I said I would, and because I wanted you to hear from me directly that the accounts are changed, and I'm not going to reverse it. Ren. Her voice shifted, found a register I recognized, the one that had, since we were children, preceded an accounting of my behavior back to me in terms I was supposed to recognize as reasonable. What you wrote, what I wrote in that chat, that was a private thing. You weren't supposed to see it. I know. People say things to each other in. Becca. I waited. I know. I'm not asking you to explain it. Then what do you want? I had sat with this question for 2 days and had arrived at the same answer both times. Nothing from you, I said. I made a decision about my accounts. I wanted you to have the information directly. You're doing this because of a text message, she said. You're punishing Marcus because of something I said in a private conversation. The word punishing landed the way I'd expected it to. I had prepared for it. Marcus has 7 days and a mother who is capable of adding a card to an account, I said. I trust you'll sort it out. You trust me too, she stopped. We don't have the money right now, Ren. That's the whole point. That's why the arrangement existed. I understand, I said. I'm sorry it's a difficult month. It doesn't change my decision. This is cruel, she said. You know that. After everything. Becca. My voice stayed level. It was not an effort. Something in me had gone very quiet at 7:51 Wednesday morning, and the quiet had held. I've been a billing contact on your family's accounts for 3 years. I made that choice, and I maintained it. I'm making a different choice now. Those are both mine to make. So that's it. Done. No conversation. We're having a conversation right now, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm going to have to explain to Marcus why his program is paused. I know, I said. I'm sorry that's hard. We ended the call. I sat with the quiet of my apartment for a few minutes, the way I'd been sitting with it all week. Then I opened my laptop and checked my work messages. There were 4 of them. I answered them in order, starting with the most time-sensitive. The voicemail came Thursday evening. I was making dinner when my phone lit up with Becca's name. I let it go. The voicemail notification appeared 2 minutes later. I listened to it at 9 p.m., once, while standing at my kitchen counter with a glass of water. Becca's voice was unsteady in the particular way of someone who has been crying before they called and is trying not to be crying while they talk. She said she needed me to understand that she wasn't trying to take advantage of me, that she'd always meant to get more stable before asking me to take anything on, that Dom's situation was temporary, and she knew that wasn't a good excuse, and that she understood if I was upset, but she hoped I knew she loved me, and that family was supposed to be the place where people helped each other. I listened to the whole thing. Then I put my phone down and went to bed. I did not call her back that night. I did not delete the voicemail immediately. I left it for a week, not because I was undecided, but because I wanted to be sure I wasn't making decisions from a place I'd regret. After a week, I listened to it one more time. Then I deleted it. Aunt Cheryl called Friday. I let it go to voicemail. Her message said she'd heard I was upset about something and she hoped we could all talk it through because family was important and misunderstandings had a way of growing when people didn't communicate. I did not call Aunt Cheryl back. I sent her a text that said, "Thanks for reaching out. I'm doing well. Hope you're good too." She replied with a heart emoji. That was the full exchange. Dom texted on Saturday, "Hey Ren, just wanted to say sorry things have been hard. Hope we can sort this out." I read it. I did not reply. Dom and I have never had a direct conversation about the accounts, and I did not think Saturday was the moment to start one. My mother called Sunday. My mother's name is Gail Calloway. She is 61 years old, and she has, for as long as I can remember, operated as the family's emotional traffic controller, the person through whom information flows and relationships are managed and crises are directed toward resolution. She called Sunday morning, which told me she had waited, deliberately, for a moment that felt considered rather than reactive, and I respected that enough to answer. "I've heard some things this week," she said. "I know," I said. "Becca is very upset." "I know. Marcus's program is on pause." "Becca had the 7-day window to update billing," I said. "I believe she has a few days left." My mother was quiet for a moment. "Will you tell me what happened?" I told her. Not everything. I didn't describe the chat, the specific message, the emoji reactions. I told her I had been covering a set of accounts and subscriptions for Becca's household for 3 years, that I had decided to stop, and that I had made the change directly and told Becca the same day. My mother listened without interrupting. This was a thing she could do when she chose to, and when she chose to, it was usually meaningful. "Did Becca know you were caring that much?" she asked when I'd finished. "She knew what she'd asked me to add," I said. "Whether she'd totaled it up, I don't know." Another pause. "Ren, I want to ask you something, and I want you to know I'm asking it because I'm trying to understand, not because I'm taking sides." "Okay. Did you feel like you couldn't say no?" when she asked. I thought about the question carefully, the way I thought about most questions, not to buy time, but because I wanted to give an accurate answer. I felt like saying no would make things uncomfortable, I said. And I was better at managing discomfort by absorbing it than by causing it. That was a choice I made. I'm making a different one now. My mother was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I think that's fair." "I think so too. She's going to need some time with this," she said. "I know." I'm not asking her to be okay with it immediately. "And you?" "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it in the particular way that fine is accurate without being complete, not everything resolved, not every question answered, but standing on solid ground. We ended the call more gently than I'd expected. My mother said she loved me. I said I loved her. We made tentative plans to talk the following week. Those plans held. Becca added her own card to the Bright Path account on day 5 of the 7-day window. I know because Paulette Ferris sent me a courtesy notification confirming the billing change, since I had been the contact on file. I noted it. I filed the email. I did not reach out to Becca about it. She found a lower-tier gym membership at a facility 3 blocks from her house, $41 a month. She mentioned to my mother, who mentioned it to me 6 weeks later during one of our Sunday calls. The streaming service she and Dom subscribed to a different platform on their own. The meal kit service she had apparently already canceled on her own. The last box had shipped before my cancellation processed, and she'd stopped it herself after that, which suggested the service had been more convenience than necessity. The photo storage app she moved to a free tier. I am listing these things not to catalog her adaptations as proof of my point, but because they are what happened, and what happened matters for the same reason the original arrangement mattered. It tells you something true about the structure you were inside. She was managing before I stepped in. She managed after I stepped out. The arrangement had been comfortable for her, genuinely, significantly comfortable, but it had not been the load-bearing wall she'd treated it as, and I had not been the only one capable of holding things up. I saw Becca at our grandmother's 80th birthday celebration in August, a lunch at a restaurant called Hazel's Table, 14 people around a long table, my grandmother at the head of it looking more alert and drier-humored than she'd been in 2 years. Becca arrived with Dom and Marcus and a card she'd made herself, which was a nice card. We sat at opposite ends of the table. We were polite. After lunch in the parking lot, she came over to where I was standing near my car. She said, "I want to say I'm sorry for what I wrote." I said, "Thank you." She said, "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." I said, "I think you meant it exactly the way it sounded. I don't think you meant for me to hear it. Those are 2 different things." She looked at me for a moment. Her jaw moved slightly, the way someone's jaw moves when they're deciding whether to push back. Then she said, "You're probably right." I said, "I know." She said, "I'd like to figure out how to be better at this. With you." I said, "I'd like that too. I think it's going to take some time." She nodded. Marcus ran over and grabbed her hand and asked if they could go get ice cream, and she looked at him and said yes, and that was the end of the conversation. I got in my car and drove home. I stopped at the bakery near my apartment on the way, the one that makes the cardamom rolls I like, and I bought two and ate them at my kitchen table and read for an hour before I started my week. My mother and I talk most Sundays now. The calls are different from how they were, shorter in some ways and more direct, because I've stopped managing her perception of my relationship with Becca and she stopped trying to traffic control the space between us. It's a less smooth arrangement and, I think, a more honest one. My savings account has a different number in it now than it did 3 years ago. Not dramatically different. $341 a month over 3 years is not life-altering in either direction, but different in the specific way that money is different when you've stopped distributing it across a system that runs without your name on it. I still work remotely. I still live in the same apartment. I bought a better chair for my desk, which I had been meaning to do for 2 years, and I joined a ceramics class on Thursday evenings, which I had been meaning to do for longer than that. These are small things. I mention them because the formula for this kind of story usually ends with a large thing, a number, a promotion, a new city. What I have instead is Thursday evenings with clay on my hands and a phone that doesn't light up with accounts I don't remember agreeing to. That's what I wanted. That was the whole thing. There is something I've learned about the word job and how families use it. Every family I've ever observed has a set of roles that get assigned early and maintained quietly. The one who remembers birthdays, the one who diffuses tension, the one who covers things. These roles are rarely negotiated. They're rarely even discussed. They accumulate the way sediment does, and after a while they look like personality. She's just always been like that. That's just how she is. The role becomes the person in the family's accounting, and the person inside the role becomes not invisible, exactly, but assumed. Present in the way utilities are present. Noticed only in the absence. The thing I understood on Wednesday morning, reading a sentence my sister had written for someone else, was that being assumed is not the same as being loved. Being useful is not the same as being seen. And a job you've never accepted is still a job someone can reference in a chat as though you applied for it. I didn't apply for it. I logged out. If you were sitting with me Thursday evening, going through that list of 7 accounts, was there one you would have left alone? Was there something you'd have handled differently? Or a moment where you would have stopped? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every one. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. I post a new one every week. Like this video if you've ever been the person your family assumed would just handle it. And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, pass it on. I'll see you next week.